The rain hammered against the glass walls of St. Aurora Hospital, turning Manhattan's night into a blur of silver streaks and sirens. Inside the emergency maternity wing, nurses rushed through the corridors, their sneakers squeaking across the polished floor. The air was thick with urgency, the kind that made even seasoned doctors exchange tense looks. They were preparing for a high-risk C-section, 3 premature babies fighting for every minute. Ava Reynolds lay on the gurney, her face pale, her breathing shallow. The monitors beside her screen flickered warnings she was too weak to look at. Her fingers trembled as she tried to hold on to the thin hospital blanket. She had spent months hiding, surviving, pushing her body past its limit, just to keep her unborn children safe. Now every contraction felt like it could shatter her. "Stay with us, Ava," a nurse whispered, squeezing her hand before they pushed her toward the operating room. Downstairs, the glass doors burst open with a violent crash. Declan Ward stormed in like a man possessed. His designer coat dripped rain onto the floor, his jaw clenched hard enough to crack. He slapped a handful of papers against the counter. "Where is she?" he snarled. "Ava Reynolds, my wife." The receptionist stiffened. "Sir, she's not listed as your wife." Declan slammed both palms down. "I don't care what she listed. I want access to her room now." People in the lobby stared. Security approached, trying to calm him, but Declan shoved them aside. His eyes were burning, not with concern, but with wounded pride and ugly jealousy. A man like him couldn't tolerate the idea of losing control, especially not to another man. Especially not to a richer man. Upstairs, in a private surgical briefing room, Silas Hawthorne signed a stack of emergency consent forms with a trembling hand. His Mont Blanc pen slipped once. He wiped his palm against his shirt, breath shaking. The billionaire who commanded global boardrooms couldn't steady himself long enough to read the risks written in black ink. All he could think about was Ava. How she had carried their children alone, how he'd failed to protect her from the ghosts of her past. "Is she stable?" he asked. "Barely." The doctor replied, "We need to deliver now." Silas ran a hand through his rain-damp hair. "Do whatever you need. Save her, and save the babies." As he stepped into the hallway, the elevator dinged sharply. Declan Ward stepped out. Their eyes locked, rage meeting ice. Silas moved first, blocking the corridor leading to the operating room. Declan smirked, lifting the papers he'd brought. "You think you can keep me from her? She's mine. She always will be." Silas didn't blink. "You'll never touch her again." Declan shoved past the guards, sprinting toward the double doors of the surgical wing. He grabbed the handle and froze at what he saw inside. She wasn't alone, and the sight shattered every remaining illusion he had. Long before Ava Reynolds lay on a hospital gurney fighting for her life, she had been the kind of woman people easily overlooked. Soft-spoken, steady-handed. A NICU nurse who carried tiny newborns as if they were made of glass. She was the one who stayed late when mothers cried, the one who whispered encouragement to families who had run out of hope. Her life had been small, quiet, almost invisible, but it was hers, and she took pride in it. Before Declan Ward. Back then, she couldn't imagine the kind of world he lived in. Glittering rooftop bars, custom suits, champagne towers that stretched like crystal mountains. They met at a charity gala she was working part-time, a night when she was refilling water pitchers while he floated through the room like a movie star. She spilled a glass near his table. He laughed softly instead of scolding her. He said she had kind eyes. He said she deserved better than scrubs and night shifts. He said all the things lonely women want to hear. But Ava didn't know that men like him build prisons out of compliments. Their relationship moved fast, too fast. Within months, she left the NICU for a life in his polished Tribeca penthouse. The marble floors, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the walk-in closets, everything looked beautiful, except for the feeling in her stomach that something was wrong. She tried to brush it off. She told herself she was lucky, that normal girls didn't get chosen by men like Declan Ward. But the cracks showed quickly. He told her which friends were good influences and which to block. He didn't like her working. He said his money was enough. He wanted her home, reachable, dependent. He held her waist lovingly in public, but behind closed doors, his voice hardened. If she questioned anything, he accused her of being ungrateful. When she hesitated to have a child because she wanted to settle into married life first, he mocked her dreams. And when she finally did get pregnant, he forced her into a clinic she didn't want to enter, whispering that she would ruin his future expansion plans. She never healed from that betrayal. When she finally left him, quietly, trembling, wearing the first pair of shoes she found, Declan retaliated the way powerful men often do. Not with fists, but with influence. Whispers spread, rumors about her mental health, her stability, her professionalism. She lost job offers she never got to interview for. She moved into a cramped sublet and worked whatever event shifts she could grab. She avoided cameras. She walked streets with her hood up. Every day felt like trying to outrun a shadow. But fate is strange, compassion returning in unexpected shapes. One winter night, at another corporate event she was setting up, fatigue overwhelmed her. She collapsed, and when she woke, Silas Hawthorne was sitting beside her hospital bed. Not the billionaire titan shown on magazine covers, just a man with tired eyes and a grief he didn't bother to hide. He recognized her. She had been one of the nurses who comforted his dying wife years ago. His voice shook when he thanked her. Ava didn't understand why his gratitude felt like a doorway opening. For the first time in years, someone looked at her without suspicion, without judgment, without ownership. But she didn't know then that their lives would soon twist together in ways neither of them could predict, and that the past she thought she left behind was about to return with devastating force. Manhattan can be cruel to the weak and indulgent to the powerful. Ava learned that truth the hard way. In the months after leaving Declan, the city felt like an endless maze designed to swallow people like her. Women with shaking hands, empty bank accounts, and bruises no one could see. But that same city, cold and glittering, would later become the backdrop of her rebirth. Her new life took place far from the Tribeca penthouse she once called home. She now lived in a tiny walk-up studio in Washington Heights, where the radiator hissed at night and the window overlooked a fire escape instead of a skyline. The rent wasn't cheap, but it was the only place she could afford without Declan's money, without his rules. Some nights, when the street outside was loud with car horns and barking dogs, she pressed a pillow over her ears and whispered to herself, "Freedom has noise, control has silence." It helped her remember she made the right choice. But her days were spent in a far different world, a world she never expected to step into. After collapsing at the tech conference, Silas Hawthorne insisted she join his foundation as a project coordinator. The office was a glass tower on Park Avenue, with polished marble floors and elevators that moved like silk. She felt out of place the first day, clutching her thrift store purse while employees tapped on MacBook Pros and planned charity galas with calm confidence. Yet Silas made space for her. He didn't give her pity, he gave her dignity. He introduced her to everyone as an essential addition to our mission. He offered her a corner desk near the windows, where she could see Central Park stretching like an emerald blanket beneath the city's steel monuments. Some mornings, she arrived early just to watch the sunrise turn the skyscrapers gold. It was the first time in years she felt like she was moving forward instead of hiding. The foundation itself was a sanctuary compared to the luxury hell Declan once paraded her through. Silas's team, doctors, researchers, medical advocates, worked to improve neonatal care nationwide. They spoke Ava's old language: compassion, precision, calm under pressure. She found herself breathing easier around them, even laughing on mornings she thought she couldn't get out of bed. Still, she kept her past locked away, not out of shame but fear. Declan had long arms, longer influence, and a fury that could tear apart anything she rebuilt. The city's contrasts shaped the rhythm of her days. Mornings in corporate glass, nights in her tiny apartment. Lunchtime among executives, dinner from microwave trays. Emails about million-dollar donations, phone calls from debt collectors. And woven through all of it, the quiet presence of Silas. Sometimes a soft knock at her office door, sometimes a cup of tea left at her desk when she looked tired. But the biggest shift happened outside the office. Silas invited her to several high-profile medical galas, insisting her nursing background made her insights valuable. The events were held at places she once cleaned after hours: the Plaza Hotel ballroom, the rooftop lounge at the Peninsula, private penthouses overlooking Fifth Avenue. She stood among men in tailored suits and women in shimmering gowns, feeling like an intruder in someone else's dream. But Silas never let her fade into the shadows. He stayed close, introduced her to donors, made sure she had a seat at important tables. His presence wasn't domineering like Declan's. It was grounding, like a hand steadying the back of a chair. For the first time, Ava felt what safety might look like. What she didn't know was that Declan, miles away in his penthouse, was watching her rise through whispers and photos, and the storm brewing inside him would soon crash into her fragile new world. And when it did, Manhattan itself would feel smaller, darker, and far more dangerous. Declan Ward had always been the kind of man people whispered about, handsome in a cold, angular way, powerful in the rooms where money decided fate, and terrifyingly unpredictable when challenged. But beneath the polished exterior, there was a darker truth. Declan didn't love people. He possessed them, and losing possession felt to him like humiliation. After Ava left, his life didn't crumble immediately. At first, he told himself she would return. Women always came back to him, especially women he had rescued. But days turned into weeks, and his calls went unanswered. His emails bounced back. The door code to his penthouse stopped accepting her old combination. Instead of grief, something uglier took root. Offense. Fury. A man like him didn't get abandoned. He could have moved on. He could have replaced her with one of the many women who lingered around his business lunches or hotel openings. But Declan didn't want someone new. He wanted control back. So he hit where it hurt: her name, her reputation. With one phone call to a friendly editor, he started rumors that she had suffered emotional instability. A month later, the whispers spread through nursing networks. A manager at the hospital they once supported quietly blacklisted her. A charity director rejected her application before she even sat down. Declan didn't do these things out of hatred. He did them out of entitlement. In his mind, Ava owed him her loyalty for the rest of her life. And when he discovered she'd resurfaced, working at Silas Hawthorne's foundation, looking stronger, glowing even, his entitlement twisted into obsession. At first, he monitored her quietly. A private investigator snapped photos of Ava entering the glass tower on Park Avenue, sometimes alongside Silas. The images made something inside Declan rot. A billionaire. Not just any billionaire, but Silas Hawthorne, the man whose name appeared in financial headlines, whose companies shaped half the city. A man more powerful, more respected, more untouchable than Declan could ever be. The comparison burned. He started visiting his gym twice a day, lifting until veins bulged. He bought new suits, rehearsed in the mirror what he would say when he confronted Ava again. But underneath the grooming rituals was panic, a deep, choking fear that Ava had finally escaped him. He couldn't let that happen. So Declan escalated. He began contacting people from Ava's past. Old co-workers, former landlords, anyone who could hand over scraps of information. He learned she'd been hospitalized briefly. He learned she often worked late. He learned her new job involved travel, planning, interacting with wealthy donors. He spun those facts into poison, telling himself she was using Silas, just like she had used him. When he learned she was pregnant, the cracks inside him widened so violently he nearly shattered. But then he learned the truth. The babies weren't his. They belonged to a billionaire, and something monstrous awakened. Instead of accepting defeat, Declan convinced himself that the children were leverage, keys to clawing back power. He could claim concern. He could pretend he wanted to protect her. If the public saw him as a devoted ex-husband trying to help a struggling, unstable woman, he could flip the narrative and destroy both Ava and Silas with a single story. People underestimated how far a desperate man with money could go. Declan contacted a lawyer known for bending the law until it screamed. He purchased confidential medical records through back channels. He began stitching together a case that could paint Ava as unfit, unstable, reckless, dangerous to her own unborn children. His plan wasn't just cruel. It was surgical. Because Declan didn't just want Ava back under his shadow. He wanted to crush the light she found without him. And as he prepared his next move, he whispered to himself, "She was mine first, and she'll be mine again." He truly believed it. What he didn't know was that the city he thought he ruled was about to turn against him, one devastating truth at a time. And the woman he thought he could break forever was about to fight back harder than he ever imagined. The night everything changed for Ava didn't happen in a dark alley or in the privacy of a quiet room. It happened under chandeliers worth more than her old annual salary, in a ballroom filled with people who could buy and sell pieces of Manhattan with a single phone call. It happened at the Hawthorne Foundation's Winter Benefit Gala, an event Ava had spent weeks coordinating. It was supposed to be her professional comeback, the night she finally felt she belonged in a world that once treated her like an outsider. But it became something else entirely. The ballroom at the Plaza Hotel shimmered with gold accents and crystal stems. Waiters carried trays of champagne, and the Manhattan elite drifted through the room, laughing softly, exchanging deals disguised as politeness. Ava moved between tables, checking floral arrangements, escorting medical donors, making sure the lighting was perfect. Her dress wasn't designer, but Silas's assistant had helped her find one simple, elegant, and comfortable. Deep navy, with sleeves that hid how thin she had gotten. For the first hour, everything felt peaceful. Ava even caught Silas watching her from across the room while he spoke to a senator. His gaze held warmth, a question, maybe even admiration. Every time their eyes met, something fluttered in her chest. She wasn't sure she deserved the feeling, but she couldn't deny its gentle pull. Then the doors opened, and Declan Ward walked in. The air tightened, conversations thinned. Even in a tux, he looked like a storm had wrapped itself around him, shoulders rigid, jaw locked, eyes scanning the ballroom with a predator's focus. It took him 5 seconds to spot Ava, 5 seconds to crush the breath from her lungs. She froze. The tray she was carrying trembled. He smiled. That same smile he used years ago when he first reeled her in, soft on the surface, sharpened underneath. "Good evening, sweetheart," he said, loud enough for nearby guests to turn. Ava's stomach dropped. "You don't belong here, Declan. Please leave." But Declan never did leave. He did scenes. He stepped closer, invading her space in a way that made her shrink back. "Relax," he murmured. "I just came to talk. You've been ignoring me for months. I'm worried about you." People stared. Cameras clicked. Gossip bloggers smelled blood. Ava tried to move past him, but Declan grabbed her wrist, not violently, but with the confidence of a man who believed no one would dare interfere. Silas did. He crossed the room so fast, guests drew back like curtains parting on a stage. His presence alone shifted the atmosphere, calm but fierce, quiet but commanding. When he reached Ava, he positioned himself slightly in front of her, not blocking her, but shielding her. "Let go of her," Silas said. Declan let out a laugh. "You the boyfriend, or just another checkbook she's using?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Silas didn't raise his voice. Last warning. But Declan thrived on lines, especially crossing them. He turned toward the nearest photographer and announced loudly, "I'm here because I'm worried about my wife. She's unstable. She's been lying to everyone here." People gasped. Ava's chest tightened painfully. Declan wasn't just humiliating her. He was planting a story. "She's sick," Declan continued. "She shouldn't be working. She needs help." Ava felt her entire body go cold. It was the same tactic he used before, the same weapon that ruined her career. He was doing it again, but this time in front of Manhattan's elite. Before she could react, before Silas could pull her away, Declan leaned closer and whispered, "You thought you could hide from me? You're carrying secrets, Ava. And soon, they'll be public." His eyes slid briefly to her stomach. Her heart nearly stopped. He knew. Silas saw the fear in her face, and something inside him snapped. He stepped forward, blocking Declan entirely, voice low and deadly. "Leave, now, because if you don't, the next headline won't be about Ava. It'll be about you." Declan smirked, backing away slowly. "We'll see." The damage was done. And as the whisper spread around the ballroom, Ava realized Declan hadn't just shown up to embarrass her. He had shown up to declare war. And this time, he had nothing to lose. Ava didn't remember how she made it out of the ballroom. One moment she was standing under golden chandeliers. The next she was gripping the marble countertop of a restroom, trying not to collapse. Her breath came in short, painful bursts. Her vision blurred around the edges. The noise of the gala, whispers, camera shutters, murmurs, echoed in her mind like a haunting chorus. Declan had done it again. He had found her. He had humiliated her. He had planted seeds of doubt in front of the very people who finally respected her. Her reflection in the mirror looked like a stranger. Pale face, trembling lips, eyes glossy with fear. Not again, she whispered. Please. Not again. Her hands shook so violently she had to steady them against the sink. A soft knock on the door broke the silence. Ava? Silas's voice low and controlled but heavy with concern. Let me in. She didn't answer, she couldn't. The door opened anyway, slowly, carefully, as if he feared startling her. When he stepped inside, tuxedo jacket unbuttoned, his expression shifted from worry to heartbreak. He moved toward her but stopped a few feet away, giving her space. Ava? Breathe, he said gently. But breathing felt impossible. The room tilted, and tears finally spilled over. She pressed both hands to her face, sinking down until she sat on the cold tiled floor. Her body curled in on itself, as if trying to become small enough to disappear. Silas lowered himself to the floor too, keeping a respectful distance. You're safe, he said softly. He can't touch you here. She shook her head. It doesn't matter. He finds me. Every time. He ruins everything. Silas, I can't go through this again. I can't survive another. Her voice broke, the weight of years of fear crushing her. Silas's jaw tightened, not with anger at her, but at the man who had done this to her. He had seen trauma before. He had lived through his own. But seeing Ava crumble like this ignited something fierce inside him. Ava? He whispered. Look at me. She did, hesitantly. You didn't do anything wrong tonight. He did. And I won't let him keep taking pieces of you. Her throat closed with emotion. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But Declan's shadow felt endless. I'm pregnant, she finally whispered. The words slipped out, not as a confession, but as a surrender. Silas froze. For a moment he didn't breathe, didn't blink. The gala noise outside faded entirely. He stared at her as if trying to understand whether she meant what he thought she meant. You're pregnant? His voice was quiet, shaky. Ava nodded, tears spilling faster. Triplets. Silas's hand went to his mouth. And you were carrying this alone? I didn't want to drag you into my mess, she whispered. You have your company, your IPO, your life. You don't need. I need you alive, he said, the words bursting out before he could contain them. His voice cracked. Just slightly. Just enough for her to hear the truth. Ava blinked, stunned. She'd never heard desperation in his voice before. Not when his company faced a crisis. Not when reporters hounded him. But now, over her, he sounded like a man terrified of losing something irreplaceable. He moved closer, slowly extending his hand. Let me help you. Let me protect you. You don't have to hide from me. But Ava pulled back, hugging her knees to her chest. Declan will destroy you. He'll use the babies, the rumors, the past. He'll twist everything. He always wins. Silas leaned forward, voice low and certain. Not this time. Her tears stopped, not because she believed him, but because her body simply ran out. He finally reached for her hand. This time she didn't pull away. And for a moment on that bathroom floor, under harsh fluorescent lights, Ava allowed herself one fragile sliver of hope. She didn't know it yet, but Declan's attack had not broken her. It had awakened the fight inside her. And soon, the world would see a version of Ava Reynolds no one, not even Declan, was prepared for. The morning after the gala felt strangely quiet, as if the city was holding its breath. Ava woke in her tiny studio apartment, sunlight leaking through the blinds, her body still trembling from the night before. Her phone buzzed non-stop, missed calls, texts from coworkers, messages from journalists fishing for gossip. She didn't open any of them. She lay still, one hand over her stomach, whispering to the 3 fragile lives inside her. Hold on. Please hold on. A sharp knock broke her thoughts. For one terrifying moment, she froze. Declan. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She shuffled backward, grabbing her phone, ready to call 911. But then she heard a voice. Deep, calm, familiar. Ava, it's me. Silas. Relief flooded her body so fast she nearly collapsed. She unlocked the door and Silas stepped inside, carrying a paper bag from a small bakery downtown. But his face wasn't calm. He looked like a man who hadn't slept. I came as soon as I could, he said. We need to talk. Ava tensed. About last night? Silas, please. No, he cut in. About this. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, unopened envelope. Her name was handwritten on the front. The handwriting was delicate, slanted, unmistakable. Ava's breath caught. This is from her? She whispered. Silas nodded, voice low. My wife left this for you. The room spun. Years ago, when Ava worked in the NICU, she had cared for Silas's wife, Elise Hawthorne, during her final weeks. Elise had been gentle, soft-spoken, always apologizing for taking up space, even as she fought for her life. Ava had held her hand during long nights, comforting her when the pain became unbearable. She never knew Elise wrote anything for her. "Silas? Why would she leave me something?" Ava asked, voice trembling. He swallowed hard. "She only wrote 3 letters before she passed. One to me, one to her sister, and one to you." Ava stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it. "What does it say?" Silas looked at her with an expression she had never seen on him, fear mixed with hope. "I don't know. I never opened it. She sealed it and told the nurse it was for the woman with steady hands and a gentle soul. She didn't know your name, but she knew you mattered." Ava couldn't breathe. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. The paper inside was thin, the ink slightly faded. Her eyes scanned the first lines, and her heart cracked open. "Dear nurse, if you are reading this, I am gone. But I need you to know something. My husband deserves a chance to love again. I need him to. Please don't let him close himself off forever." Ava covered her mouth. Silas watched her, eyes glistening, his composure unraveling. "Keep reading," he whispered. Ava continued, voice barely audible. "You have a kindness he will recognize, a steadiness he needs. If he finds you someday, don't be afraid to let him in." Tears blurred the rest of the words, but Ava understood enough. Elise had given them permission. No, she had blessed their path before it even began. Ava looked up, stunned, overwhelmed. "Silas, why did you show me this now?" His voice broke. "Because last night, when you told me you were pregnant, when I saw fear instead of joy in your eyes, I realized something. You don't believe you deserve a future. You think Declan destroyed that for you." He stepped closer, gently touching her wrist. "My wife didn't write that letter for fate," he whispered. "She wrote it for you." Ava's tears slipped freely now, falling onto the fragile paper, but then her phone buzzed again. A text, unknown number. She opened it. One photo. Declan standing outside her building, looking straight up at her window. A chill sliced through her spine. Silas saw the screen, and his expression hardened into something lethal. "It's starting," he whispered, and Ava finally understood. Elise's letter wasn't just a blessing, it was a warning. Ava had spent years shrinking, into corners, into silence, into versions of herself that felt safer because they were smaller. But the moment she saw Declan standing outside her building in that photo, staring up like a hunter tracking prey, something inside her snapped. Not in fear this time. In defiance. "He found me again," Ava whispered, staring at her phone as if the pixels could burn her. Silas gently took the device from her hand. "Then he's about to find out he made a mistake." Ava blinked at him, confused. "Silas, you don't understand. Declan doesn't stop. He doesn't back down. The more cornered he feels, the worse he gets." Silas gave her a long, steady look. "Then we stopped giving him corners to hide in." It shouldn't have made sense, but it did. For the first time, Ava felt something she hadn't felt in years, like someone was standing between her and the storm, without expecting anything in return. He held out his hand. "Come with me." She hesitated. "Where?" "To start taking back your life." The ride to Midtown was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Silas drove instead of letting his driver handle it, maybe because he didn't want another set of eyes involved, maybe because he wanted Ava to feel safe. The soft hum of the Mercedes and the glow of the city passing by felt strangely protective. He parked beneath a sleek tower of glass, Hawthorne Global's private headquarters. Ava had only been here once, months ago, to drop off documents. She never imagined walking inside at Silas's side. The lobby lights reflected off polished marble floors. Security guards stood a little straighter when Silas entered, but he gave them a simple nod instead of the usual corporate severity. They let Ava through without question. They took the elevator to the 58th floor. The doors opened into a conference suite bigger than her entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the Manhattan skyline like a living painting. Ava felt small again, but not powerless. The city looked different from up here. You could see how big the world really was, and how small men like Declan truly were. Silas gestured toward a chair. "Sit." Not an order, an invitation. On the table in front of her sat a laptop, several documents, and a sleek black folder stamped with the Hawthorne family crest. "What is all this?" she asked. Silas exhaled deeply. "Everything you need to protect yourself, legally, financially, physically." Ava frowned. "Silas, But he raised a hand gently. "Just listen," and she did. "There's a misconception about men like Declan," he began. "People think their power comes from money, but it doesn't. It comes from fear, from isolation, from convincing their victims that they're alone." His eyes softened. "You're not alone anymore." Ava swallowed hard. He opened the black folder. Inside were papers she didn't expect. Restraining order drafts, a security detail roster, a private investigator's report detailing Declan's recent movements, and a legal declaration of paternal responsibility, with Silas's signature already on it. Ava gasped. "Silas, what did you do?" He met her eyes. "I'm protecting the mother of my children." Her heart stuttered. No one had ever said words like that to her. Not with sincerity. Not with love disguised as steel. "But you don't have to. I want to." Ava felt something shift inside her, something heavy, something old. Fear didn't vanish entirely, but it loosened its grip enough for something new to bloom. Resolve. Silas stood and walked to a side cabinet. When he returned, he held a small velvet box, not a ring, but something else entirely. He opened it and revealed a delicate necklace with a simple, shining pendant. "This belonged to Elise," he said quietly. "She wanted you to have it someday." Ava's breath hitched. I can't." "She believed in you," Silas whispered. "And now I do too." He clasped it around her neck. It felt like armor. She looked at her reflection in the window. Messy hair, tired eyes, trembling hands, but with a spark she hadn't seen in years. Strength. Silas stepped beside her. "Ava, you've survived things most people couldn't. Now it's time to stop surviving." He touched her hand gently, "and start fighting back." Ava lifted her chin. For the first time in years, she believed she could. What she didn't know was that Declan, watching from his penthouse across the river, had already seen the lights turn on in Silas's office, and he was about to make one more deadly mistake. Underestimating the woman he thought he broke forever. The following week unfolded like a storm Ava didn't see coming, until she realized she was no longer the woman hiding from thunder. She was walking directly into it, chin raised, heart pounding, but unbroken. Silas had arranged everything quietly, methodically, with a strategist's precision and a protector's urgency. Ava didn't know where he found the time, but he seemed determined to put an entire army between her and Declan. And yet, it wasn't enough for Silas to shield her in private. He wanted the world to know the truth. It began with an invitation Ava didn't understand at first, a press conference hosted by the Hawthorne Foundation at the River Cafe overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. She thought it would be about a new neonatal program, something medical or charitable. Instead, she walked into a venue filled with reporters, donors, cameras, and a tension so thick it felt like the air itself was waiting for something explosive. She tugged at her sleeves nervously. "Silas, what is this?" He didn't answer immediately. He adjusted his cufflinks. "Mont Blanc," she reckoned, before turning to her with an expression she had never seen on him before. A mix of purpose and quiet fury. "It's time," he said. "People need to hear the truth from you, not him." Ava's breath caught. "No. Silas, I can't. If Declan sees me up there." "That's the point," he said softly. "He won't own your story anymore." Her pulse raced. "But the pregnancy?" "Will reveal nothing you're not ready for," he promised. "But the rumors he spread at the gala? The comments? The lies? Ava, you deserve a voice." She didn't think she had one, not anymore. But when Silas offered his hand, steady and warm, she took it. They walked together to the front of the room. The lights were bright, the murmurs rising as cameras clicked rapidly. Ava felt her throat tighten, but Silas stood just to her right, close enough for her to feel his presence, but far enough for her to speak on her own. A journalist called out, "Ms. Reynolds, is it true your ex-husband claims you're mentally unstable?" Another voice, "Are you using the Hawthorne Foundation to rebuild your image?" A third, "Is it true you disappeared for months? Why?" The barrage hit her like bullets. Ava almost stepped back. Then she remembered Elise's letter resting in her purse, the words that said she had a gentle soul, and that Silas deserved a chance to love again. That tiny paper felt like a shield. She leaned toward the microphone. "My name is Ava Reynolds," she began, voice unsteady but audible, "and I'm here because someone has been trying to decide my story for me." The room fell silent. Ava continued, her voice strengthening as she spoke. For years, I lived in fear of Declan Ward. Behind closed doors, he controlled my finances, isolated me, manipulated my medical records, and spread lies when I found the courage to leave. A ripple went through the crowd. Ava swallowed hard but kept going. I stayed quiet because I was ashamed, because I thought no one would believe me. Last week at the gala, he approached me publicly. He humiliated me. He tried to suggest I was unstable. She paused. Silas watched her, jaw tight, ready to jump in. But she held up a hand. "I'm not unstable," she said firmly. "I'm a survivor." Reporters leaned forward, pens ready. For the first time, I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing to speak, and I'm choosing to say his name, not because he deserves attention, but because I deserve freedom. Flashbulbs erupted. Ava's heart hammered. Something inside her cracked open, not like breaking, but like a shell falling away. She stepped back from the mic, trembling. Silas placed a hand on the small of her back. "You were perfect?" But before Ava could respond, someone shouted from the doorway, "Well, isn't this sweet?" The room turned. Declan Ward stood there, smirking, confident, flanked by two lawyers. Ava's blood went cold. Silas stepped in front of her instantly. The showdown they had feared was happening, here, in front of every camera in New York. And Declan's next words made the temperature of the room drop. "You forgot to mention the most important part of your story, Ava. Tell them who got you pregnant." Gasps filled the room. Ava felt the ground shift beneath her feet. Silas stiffened beside her. But the real shock was this. Ava realized Declan planned this moment all along. For a moment, the world stopped moving. Cameras froze mid-click. Coffee cups hovered half-lifted. Dozens of reporters stared wide-eyed at Declan Ward, their pens trembling, hungry for scandal. Ava felt her stomach twist so violently she had to grip the podium to keep from collapsing. Declan's voice, smooth and poisonous, echoed through the room like a venomous bell. "Go on, Ava," he taunted. "Tell them who the father is." Ava's throat closed. She felt exposed, cornered, stripped of all the strength she'd gathered. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. The room blurred. All she could hear was his voice from years ago. Cold, commanding, cruel. "You'll never survive without me. You'll never be believed. You'll always come back." Her breath hitched. Then Silas stepped forward. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look angry. He simply stood between Ava and Declan, like a wall forged from something unbreakable. "You don't speak to her," Silas said, his voice dangerously low. Declan smirked and took another step forward. "Oh look, the billionaire prince defending his damsel. Cute, but the public has a right to know." "No," Silas cut in sharply. "You have a desire to cause harm. That's not the same thing." Reporters gasped, some scribbled furiously, others lifted their phones to record. Declan wasn't expecting resistance. Not like this. His smug smile faltered for a split second, but he recovered quickly. "Fine," he snapped. "I'll say it myself. Ava ran away from me, disappeared for months, and suddenly reappears pregnant, and now she's working for him? Do the math." A few cameras swung toward Ava. Shame rose in her chest like a wave, threatening to drown her. Her legs trembled. She wanted to run, hide, disappear. But then she saw Silas's reflection in the window behind the crowd. The way his jaw tensed. The way his shoulders squared. The way his entire body shifted closer like he was silently telling her, "You're not facing him alone anymore." Ava inhaled. Her trembling stopped. She stepped out from behind Silas. Her voice was soft at first. "Declan, stop." He raised an eyebrow, amused. "Finally finding your voice, sweetheart?" A flicker of old fear tried to surface, but Ava crushed it. "No, I'm finding yours." She lifted her chin. "The one you used to silence me all those years." The room went still. Ava steadied herself on the podium and continued. "Yes, I'm pregnant with triplets." Her voice shook, but she kept going. "And no, they're not yours. They were never yours. You lost the right to my life a long time ago." Silas swallowed hard behind her. Reporters leaned forward, breathless. Ava continued, louder now. "I didn't hide because I was ashamed. I hid because I was afraid. Afraid of you. Afraid of the man who controlled my life so tightly, I couldn't breathe." Her voice cracked. "But I'm not afraid anymore." A murmur of support rippled through the room. Declan's face darkened. "You think this changes anything?" he snapped. He held up a folder. "I have medical records, proof of instability, proof she's unfit." "Stolen records," a voice called from the back. Everyone turned. A woman in her 60s with silver hair and sharp eyes stepped forward. Deborah Collins, Silas's lead attorney, known in New York's legal world as a hurricane in heels. She held up her own folder. Those files were purchased illegally. We have documentation, timestamps, witness statements, and digital forensics tying the acquisition directly to you, Mr. Ward. Declan blinked. Deborah continued, voice like steel wrapped in velvet. Interfering with medical privacy is a felony. So is harassment. So is stalking. Cameras flashed wildly. Declan stuttered. This is ridiculous. She's lying. They're framing me. No, Ava said softly, cutting him off. You framed yourself. Silas stepped beside her, not in front, beside. Equal, solid, present. He spoke calmly, each word measured. Leave her alone, because from this moment on, every move you make, every threat, every whisper will be recorded, reported, and prosecuted. Declan stared at both of them. For the first time Ava saw something in his eyes she'd never seen before. Fear. But he masked it with a sneer. This isn't over. Silas leaned in just enough for Declan to hear. It is. And as security moved toward Declan, cameras flashing like lightning, the room erupted, because the world had just witnessed the beginning of his downfall. Declan Ward didn't disappear quietly after the press conference. Not men like him, not men whose egos crumble louder than glass on marble. The moment security escorted him out, reporters swarmed, cameras exploding like fireworks as he shoved past them, muttering curses Ava couldn't hear. But she didn't need to. She knew that look in his eyes. The look of a man who felt humiliated, cornered, and dangerously unpredictable. That night, Ava sat in Silas's car, hands trembling in her lap. The city lights streaked across the windows like gold scratches, each passing block tightening the knot in her chest. Silas kept glancing at her, worry etched in every line of his face. You don't have to talk, he said gently. Just breathe. But breathing felt like swallowing broken glass. Silas, this is going to get worse, she whispered. He didn't disagree. Instead, he reached across the console and intertwined their fingers. Whatever comes next, you're not facing it alone. She wanted to believe that. Wanted desperately to believe this wasn't one of those moments where hope slips through your fingers right when you need it most. But Ava had survived Declan before, and she knew the storm he carried inside him didn't pass. It detonated. When she finally reached her apartment, Silas didn't leave. He insisted on walking her upstairs. The hallway lights flickered as they approached her door. Ava noticed something immediately. Her welcome mat was crooked. Just slightly. But she never left it that way. Her heartbeat spiked. Silas, she whispered, stepping back. Someone's been here. He stiffened, positioning himself in front of her before gently testing the door handle. Unlocked. Ava's breath caught. Silas pushed the door open slowly. The apartment was dark, too quiet. Then, as he turned on the light, both of them froze. The place wasn't ransacked. Nothing was stolen. But every drawer was pulled open. Every cabinet door was ajar. Every photograph was turned face down. A message without words. A violation far deeper than theft. Ava's knees buckled, and Silas caught her before she hit the floor. She pressed both hands over her mouth, shaking violently. He was here, she whispered. He came here. Silas held her close, voice tight with fury. He won't ever come back. I promise. But Ava wasn't convinced. Declan didn't need to break things to break her. He only needed to remind her he could touch her life whenever he wished. The next morning, Deborah Collins arrived with 2 private security agents. She walked through the apartment like a seasoned crime scene analyst, her heels clicking with purpose. He's escalating, Deborah said. This wasn't random. This was psychological. Ava sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket Silas brought from his car. He wants me to know he's watching. Silas paced the room, jaw clenched so tightly a muscle ticked. I'll hire 20 guards if I have to. She's not staying here another night. Deborah nodded. Agreed. Ava, pack whatever you need. You're moving into Silas's penthouse. Ava looked up, startled. I can't. It's too much. I don't want. This isn't about want, Deborah said softly. It's about safety. And right now, yours is compromised. Silas knelt in front of Ava, taking her hands. Ava, let me protect you. Her eyes filled with tears, not from fear this time, but from the shocking tenderness of his plea. No one had ever protected her without condition. She nodded. Silas exhaled shakily, relief flooding him. But before he could help her stand, Ava's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. One sentence. You shouldn't have embarrassed me. Silas read it over her shoulder, his face drained of color, replaced with a cold fury Ava had never seen on him before. Deborah grabbed the phone. He made his first mistake tonight. Now we make sure it's his last. But even as they prepared to move her out, Ava felt it deep in her bones. Declan wasn't finished. He was only beginning. And his next move would be far more dangerous than a broken boundary. Ava never imagined she would step inside Silas Hawthorne's penthouse as anything other than a visitor. But that night, she entered as someone in hiding. Someone in danger. Someone carrying 3 fragile lives and a past that refused to die quietly. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse living room, revealing a sweeping view of the Manhattan skyline. Glass walls framed the glowing city like a living, breathing painting. At another time, the sight would have taken her breath away. Tonight, she barely noticed it. Silas guided her inside with a protective hand at her back. His security staff scanned every corner, every door, every blind spot. Only once they gave the all-clear did Silas finally exhale. "It's safe?" he said softly. Ava swallowed. "For now." He hesitated before gently brushing her cheek with his thumb. "For as long as it takes." Deborah Collins set her briefcase on the counter and cleared her throat. "There's still one issue," she said. "Declan isn't acting alone." Ava stiffened. "What do you mean?" Silas turned toward Deborah, tension tightening every line of his body. "Explain." Deborah opened her briefcase and pulled out a tablet. On the screen was a list. Security breach reports, internal emails, timestamps from surveillance logs. "There's a leak," she said. "Inside your company." Silas's jaw clenched. "Impossible." "My system is." "Not hacked," Deborah interrupted. "Compromised." She tapped one file. A name appeared. Noah Ellis, Silas's personal aide, the one who scheduled his meetings, coordinated his travel, and frequently interacted with Ava during her shifts at the foundation. He was soft-spoken, polite, and unfailingly efficient, the kind of person you never notice, because everything he touches works seamlessly. Ava's stomach twisted. "Noah? Why would he?" "Money," Deborah said. "Declan paid him, handsomely." Silas looked genuinely stunned. "Noah has been with me for 8 years, which is exactly why Declan targeted him," Deborah replied. "Declan doesn't strike at your strengths, Silas. He strikes at your blind spots." Ava felt a cold shiver crawl up her spine. Declan wasn't just following her. He was watching her through someone she trusted. Silas rubbed a hand over his face, processing the betrayal. "What did Noah give him?" Deborah hesitated. "Your schedule, Ava's medical appointments, and the building access logs." Ava's breath hitched. "He knew when I'd be alone." Deborah nodded grimly. "This is how he knew when to break into your apartment, when to avoid the neighbors, when you'd return from the gala." Ava felt nausea grip her. Every moment of safety she thought she had suddenly felt like a trap. Silas crouched beside her, taking her shaking hands. "Ava, look at me." She lifted her eyes to his. "This is not your fault. None of this is your fault." Her lips trembled. "But I brought danger into your world." Silas shook his head. "You didn't bring danger. Danger found you. And I'm not letting it take anything else from you." Before she could answer, the elevator chimed. Security immediately stepped forward, forming a shield. But when the doors opened, Noah Ellis stood there, wide-eyed, pale, holding his hands in the air. "Mr. Hawthorne, please, just hear me out." Silas's voice turned to ice. "You don't belong here." Noah swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to hurt Ava. I swear. Declan told me she was unstable. He said you were in danger. He said whatever it took to buy your loyalty," Deborah snapped. Noah's voice cracked. "I didn't know he would go this far. I didn't know he would break into her home, or follow her, or threaten her." Ava stood slowly. "Noah, why would you believe him? After everything Silas has done for you." Noah's shoulders sagged. "Because he showed me something. Something about the babies." Silas stiffened. "What?" Noah's voice shook. "He said one of them might not survive, that there are complications you don't know about." Ava's heart stopped. "What complications?" she choked out. Noah looked at Silas, then Ava, guilt drowning his features. "I didn't want to tell you like this," he whispered. "But the last ultrasound report, Declan got a copy before you did." Silas's face drained of color. Ava pressed a hand to her stomach, panic rising like fire. "What did he see?" she asked. Noah's answer shattered the room. "One of the baby's hearts is struggling." Ava's legs buckled. Silas caught her before she fell, and everything in the world suddenly narrowed to 3 fragile beats of life inside her. 3 little hearts. and one of them was fighting to survive. Ava's world tilted, not sideways, not slowly, but violently, as if someone had yanked the floor out from under her. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears, drowning out every sound except Noah's trembling voice echoing again and again. One of the baby's hearts is struggling. She clutched Silas's arm with both hands, nails digging into his sleeve. Her breathing turned shallow, fast, desperate. She wasn't just scared, she was unraveling. "Tell me exactly what you saw," Silas demanded, voice sharp with controlled panic. Noah swallowed. "The last ultrasound from 2 days ago, baby B's heartbeat was irregular. The doctor noted it but wanted to run more tests. Declan got the report first and he used it to manipulate me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Ava shook her head violently. No, that's impossible. I didn't miss any appointments. I would have known. I would have." "Hey," Silas whispered, gripping her shoulders. "Look at me. Breathe." But she couldn't. All she could see was the image from her last appointment. 3 tiny shapes swimming in a black and white blur. 3 flickers pulsing like stars. She had memorized every beat, every flutter, every hope. Now one might be fading. "Call Dr. O'Malley," Silas ordered, turning to his security team. "Now, tell her we're coming to the hospital." Noah stepped forward shakily. "Mr. Hawthorne, please let me help. I never meant for this to happen. Let me make it right." Silas didn't raise his voice. Didn't have to. "You will make it right by getting out of my home and praying Ava never sees your face again." Noah lowered his head, shame swallowing him whole, and stepped backward into the elevator. The doors slid shut like a final sentence. Ava's legs buckled again. Silas caught her, lifting her effortlessly into his arms, as if she weighed nothing. "We're going," he murmured against her hair. "Right now." The drive to St. Aurora Hospital felt endless. Rain smeared the windshield. Traffic lights blurred into smeared red halos. Ava kept one hand on her stomach the entire time, whispering through tears. "Hang on, baby, please." Silas drove like a man possessed, jaw clenched, knuckles white around the steering wheel. He kept glancing at her, heart breaking at every sob, every tremble of her lip. He had seen her hurt before. Fear, exhaustion, humiliation, but never this. Never a terror that came from inside her, threatening the very souls growing beneath her ribs. When they reached the hospital, nurses rushed them in immediately. Silas carried Ava through the doors, ignoring the cameras flashing outside, reporters already circling from Declan's stunt at the press event. Inside the dim ultrasound room, Ava lay on the exam table, gown crinkling under her palms. Her breath shook as the cold gel touched her skin. The machine hummed to life. Silas held her hand tightly, his thumb brushing her knuckles. Dr. O'Malley, a woman in her 50s with steady eyes, moved the probe across Ava's belly with practiced calm. But Ava could see the tension in her jaw. "Please," Ava whispered, "tell me they're okay." "Let me take a closer look," the doctor murmured. Seconds passed like years, then she spoke. "Baby A, very strong heartbeat. Baby C, steady and rhythmic." She paused. Silas's grip on Ava tightened. "And baby B?" Ava choked out. The screen flickered. A faint, uneven flutter appeared. Dr. O'Malley exhaled. "Baby B's heartbeat is irregular, but present. It's weaker than it should be. We need to monitor closely and start immediate intervention." Ava burst into tears. Relief, fear, everything colliding. Silas pressed his forehead to hers. "They're still fighting," he whispered. "All 3 of them." "But what caused it?" Ava cried. "Did I do something wrong? Did stress? Did Declan?" "No," Dr. O'Malley said firmly. "This isn't your fault. This can happen in high-risk multiples. What matters is that you came in now." She placed a gentle hand on Ava's arm. "But Ava, you need to understand. From this moment on, you cannot go home. You need full medical supervision, and any elevated stress could worsen the baby's condition." Ava nodded weakly. Silas turned to the doctor. "She stays. Private room, full security, whatever equipment she needs." But the doctor hesitated. "There's something else," she said softly. "Stress alone isn't the issue." Silas frowned. "Then what is?" Dr. O'Malley looked at Ava, then at Silas. "Someone accessed Ava's digital medical chart. Someone outside our system." Ava's blood ran cold. Silas's face darkened. "Declan," he said. The doctor nodded grimly. "And whoever accessed it tried to request unauthorized updates, changes." Ava clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Declan wasn't just stalking her. He was trying to rewrite her medical reality. Silas closed his eyes once, slowly, like he was holding back an explosion. Then he opened them. Voice deadly calm. This ends tonight. But Ava didn't know that ending Declan's reign was going to demand one more devastating twist, one that would push her to the edge of losing everything. The private room Ava was moved into looked more like a boutique hotel suite than a hospital space. Soft lighting, a reclining bed, a view overlooking Central Park. But no amount of calm decor could soothe the terror gnawing inside her. Machines beeped steadily beside her. An IV dripped slowly into her arm. 2 fetal monitors blinked, 3 fragile rhythms displayed on glowing screens. Baby A, Baby B, Baby C. Ava stared at those flickers like her life depended on each beat. Silas stood near the window, phone to his ear, voice low and deadly calm as he spoke with his head of corporate security. Find out exactly when the breach happened and trace every digital fingerprint. I want a full timeline. Ava could tell by the rigid line of his shoulders that he was barely holding himself together. When he finally hung up, he walked toward her, trying his best to soften his expression, but the worry in his eyes betrayed him. How are you feeling? He asked gently. She forced a small, weak smile. Like I'm lying inside a glass box waiting to crack. Silas sat on the edge of her bed, brushing stray strands of hair from her forehead. You're not gonna crack. Not while I'm here. A knock sounded at the door. Deborah Collins entered, her presence a mixture of authority and compassion. She closed the door behind her, set her briefcase on the table, and took a seat. We have a problem, she said immediately. Ava braced herself. Another breach? Worse, Deborah replied. Declan filed an emergency court petition tonight. He's claiming you're psychologically unfit to carry the pregnancy safely. Ava's mouth fell open. What? How could he? He forged medical documents, Deborah said calmly. Ones Noah must have helped provide. Silas cursed under his breath. Deborah continued. He's using the stress episode at the gala, plus the recent medical complications, to argue that the babies are at risk under your care. He's requesting temporary medical conservatorship. Ava felt the room spin. Conservatorship? That's insane. He wants legal control over my pregnancy? Deborah nodded gravely. Which would give him access to every medical decision and the right to override yours. Ava clutched her stomach instinctively, protective panic rising like fire. He can't take my babies. He can't control me again. Silas stood abruptly, voice steel. He won't. Not ever again. Deborah held up a hand. We can fight it, but that's not the worst part. She slid a document across the table. Declan has convinced the court to send a wellness evaluator here. Tonight. Ava's blood ran cold. No, I can't. I can't handle something like that right now. If they force me to talk, if I panic, my stress could harm the babies. That's what he's counting on, Deborah said quietly. Silas paced the room like a caged lion. He wants to push her into a breakdown so the evaluator files against her. Ava felt tears burn behind her eyes. Why is he doing this? Why go this far? Silas turned to her, voice trembling with anger and fear. Because losing control of you wasn't enough, he wants to destroy you. Another knock came at the door, a softer one, more hesitant. A security officer poked his head in. Mr. Hawthorne? Miss Collins? The evaluator is here. And sir, there's something else. Silas stiffened. What? The guard looked uneasy. Declan Ward is in the lobby. Ava's heart slammed against her ribs. He's demanding to be allowed up, the guard continued. He's shouting to reporters that you're hiding Ava and that she's a danger to herself and the pregnancy. Silas moved toward the door, but Deborah blocked him. Don't, she warned. He wants you to confront him. It strengthens his narrative. Ava shook her head violently, panic clawing at her throat. I can't see him, Silas. If he walks in here, I'll break. And if I break, the babies. He rushed to her side, taking both her hands, grounding her. You won't break, he whispered. You're stronger than he ever imagined, her voice cracked. But I'm scared. Silas leaned forward, forehead against hers. Then be scared. I'll carry the rest. Before she could answer, the door opened again. A woman in a gray suit stepped inside. The evaluator. Her expression was neutral, until she looked at Ava. Then her eyes softened. Ava Reynolds, she said gently. I'm here to help. Ava blinked. The woman lowered her voice. My sister was one of your NICU patients once. You saved her baby. Ava gasped. Silas looked stunned. Deborah whispered, this changes everything. But outside the room, Declan was shouting louder, angrier, desperate. And the evaluator's next words hinted at a truth that could shake everything. I know what men like Declan Ward are capable of. Ava's pulse stumbled. For the first time that night, the fear inside her shifted. Not into despair, but into a flicker of hope. For the first time since the nightmare began, Ava felt the air inside her chest shift, just slightly, just enough for a fragile breath. The evaluator, a woman with calm eyes and steady posture, stepped closer and gently closed the door behind her, sealing out the echoes of Declan's rage in the hallway. "My name is Mia Hargrove," she said softly. "I specialize in high-risk maternal wellness evaluations, but I'm not here because of Declan. I'm here because the court appointed me independently. He doesn't control me." Ava swallowed hard. "But he said he filed a petition. I thought—" "He filed it," Mia confirmed, "and I read it on my way here. It was alarming. Not because of you, Ava." Her eyes darkened. "Because of him." Silas stood beside the bed, arms crossed tightly, every muscle coiled with suspicion. "What exactly did he tell the court?" Mia pulled a small folder from her bag. "He claims Ava is emotionally unstable, displaying erratic behavior, suffering delusions regarding the pregnancy, and refusing medical care. He submitted forged medical notes to support it." Ava felt disgust rise in her throat. "He's lying, every word." "I know," Mia said firmly. Ava blinked. "You do?" Mia nodded and took a slow breath, as if steadying herself before revealing something heavy. "My sister, Caroline, gave birth 8 years ago. Severe complications. Premature baby. NICU stay." She smiled gently. "You were her nurse." Ava's eyes widened. "You stayed past your shift," Mia continued. "You read to her baby at night. You spent hours helping my sister stay calm when she thought she was losing him." Her voice cracked slightly. "You saved my nephew's life." Silas exhaled a long, relieved breath. Deborah Collins stopped writing in her legal pad, her gaze softening. Ava felt tears sting her eyes. I didn't know." "You wouldn't have," Mia said, sitting beside the bed. "But I never forgot your face, or your kindness. So when I saw your name on the emergency petition, I didn't see a woman in crisis. I saw a woman who once held my family together." Ava's voice trembled. "And you believe me, even after everything Declan said?" Mia's expression hardened. "Declan Ward is exactly the kind of man who weaponizes fear and paperwork. I've evaluated dozens of cases involving abusers like him. His file reeked of coercion." She leaned forward. "Ava, I'm here to protect your rights, not take them." Ava burst into tears. Quiet, exhausted tears that shook her entire chest. Silas took her hand immediately. "You're safe," he whispered, but Mia wasn't finished. "There's something else," she said, turning to Deborah. "Declan didn't just forge records. He tried to manipulate the court system by claiming imminent danger to the fetuses. He requested emergency intervention to gain temporary control." Deborah cursed under her breath. "He's trying to force a precedent. If a judge grants that, Ava loses every decision." Silas's jaw tightened. "Over my dead body." Mia raised a calming hand. "That won't happen, because I've already submitted my initial evaluation to the court." Ava froze. "Already? But you just arrived." "I've been reviewing your actual medical files all day," Mia said. "The real ones, and I documented Declan's attempts to alter them." Silas's eyes widened. "So the court will see his petition as malicious," Mia finished. "It will weaken him, severely." Ava let out a shaky breath she felt like she'd been holding for months. "Thank you. Thank you so much." Mia gave her a soft smile. "You deserve peace, Ava, and you're not as alone as he wants you to believe." Before anyone could respond, a loud commotion erupted outside the door. Voices clashing, security shouting, reporters pushing boundaries. Silas instantly moved closer to Ava, protective instinct flaring. "What now?" A guard burst inside. "Sir, Mr. Ward is refusing to leave the premises. He's demanding access to Ava's room." Ava's heart lurched in terror. Deborah stood swiftly, eyes blazing. "This ends tonight. Mia, stay with Ava. Silas, come with me." But Mia placed a hand over Ava's trembling ones. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Ava, you need to hear this. Declan didn't just come to harass you tonight." Ava stiffened. Mia hesitated, then said the words that made Ava's blood turn to ice. "He's petitioning for an emergency order that would force you into a psychiatric evaluation under custody." Ava gasped, clutching her stomach. Silas froze mid-step. "He wants to institutionalize you," Mia whispered. "Immediately." Ava's pulse exploded into panic. Fear, sharp, suffocating primal, flooded her entire being, but Mia tightened her grip. "Listen to me," she said urgently. "He plans to break you." Then she leaned closer. but he has no idea how close he is to destroying himself. Ava felt as if the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Institutionalized. The word echoed in her head like a scream trapped underwater. Declan wasn't just trying to control her, he was trying to erase her, strip her agency, steal her babies, break her so completely she could never rise again. Silas stopped halfway to the door. His face changed, no longer just worried or angry. Something colder, sharper, far more dangerous settled behind his eyes. "No one," he said quietly, "will ever put Ava in a psychiatric facility. Not while I'm alive." Mia squeezed Ava's hand, grounding her. "Listen to me," she said softly. "Declan is desperate. Men like him escalate right before they fall apart, and that's exactly what's happening." Ava tried to steady her breathing, but her chest was tight, every inhale painful. "I feel like he's everywhere, like he knows every move we make." Silas turned toward her. "Not anymore." He glanced at the guard. "Bring Security Chief Danvers and call Detective Ruiz. Tell her the situation has escalated." Deborah crossed her arms, eyes blazing. "We have enough on him already, but I want airtight charges. If he's trying to force psychiatric custody, that means he forged signatures or bribed someone." Mia nodded. "And falsifying mental health claims for personal gain is a felony. He thinks he's untouchable. He's not." Outside, Declan continued shouting, demanding, threatening, slipping into that venomous charisma he used on judges and investors. Ava heard his voice echo in the hall. "She's unstable. She needs intervention. I'm trying to save her." A nurse walked by and flinched. Ava pressed her hands to her stomach, whispering to her babies, "I'm here. I'm fighting for you. Just hold on." Then, something unexpected happened. Security Chief Danvers entered the room with a grim expression. He nodded respectfully at Ava, before turning to Silas. "We found something," Danvers said quietly, "in Mr. Ward's possession." Silas stiffened. "What is it?" Danvers held up a plastic evidence pouch. Inside it was a USB drive. Ava felt her heart stutter. "What's on it?" she asked. The chief hesitated. "Encrypted medical files. Not just yours. Dr. O'Malley's login was used. There are attempts to alter fetal reports." Ava's breath hitched. "He tried to change my baby's medical records again?" The chief nodded. "Worse, he tried to create a false report suggesting you refused treatment that endangered baby B." Ava covered her mouth, her entire body shaking. Silas swore under his breath, a sound Ava had never heard from him before. Deborah stepped forward. "This is grounds for immediate restraining orders, criminal charges, attempted interference with medical care, fraud." But the chief wasn't done. "And there's something else," he added. "A recorded phone call between Mr. Ward and Noah Ellis. Mr. Matt Ward threatened Noah's family." Ava gasped. Silas's eyes narrowed. "Play it." The chief connected his phone and audio filled the room. Declan's voice, slick with malice. "You do exactly what I say or your sister loses her job. You hear me? I'll bury her. And that nurse, that pathetic ex-wife, I'll make sure no one believes a word she says. I'll have her declared unfit before the week is over." Ava's tears slipped silently down her cheeks. Deborah's face darkened. "He extorted Noah. That gives us more leverage than I ever hoped for." But Mia leaned forward, voice icy calm. "And that's not all. Someone leaked Declan's petition to the court ethics board. They are reviewing him for malicious filing." Ava blinked through tears. "Someone leaked it? Go." Mia gave a small, secretive smile. "Let's just say you're not the only one he underestimated. Some of his own contacts are turning on him." Silas exhaled a controlled, dangerous sound. "He's unraveling." Danvers nodded. "And his presence downstairs is making it worse. Reporters are documenting everything." Mia squeezed Ava's hand again. "This is the moment men like Declan slip, and they slip big." But before anyone could respond, a nurse rushed in, face pale. "Mr. Hawthorne," she whispered urgently, "you need to see this." Silas tensed. "What's wrong?" She pointed to the monitor displaying Ava's fetal heartbeats. Baby B's line flickered, erratic, weak, failing. Ava's world narrowed to a pinpoint. "No," she whispered, gripping the bed rails. "No, please." Silas moved instantly to her side, calling for the doctor, for help, for anything. As alarms began to sound, and Ava realized with horrifying clarity, Declan wasn't just trying to break her mind, he was pushing her body to its limit. And now one of her babies was paying the price. The alarm was shrill, high, piercing, relentless. It sliced through the hospital room like a blade. Ava's breath hitched as the fetal monitor for baby B pulsed red. its once steady flicker now dipping sharply, irregular, like a flame struggling against the wind. "Silas," she whispered, voice cracking in terror. The heartbeat, it's dropping. Silas was already at her side, his hands shaking as he pressed the call button for emergency assistance. "Doctor, we need help in here. Now." His voice boomed with a mixture of fear and authority that carried down the hallway. 2 nurses rushed in. "Ava, try to stay calm," one urged gently, adjusting the sensors on her stomach. "Let's reposition you. Sometimes that helps." They shifted her to her left side, then her right. The monitor stuttered but didn't stabilize. Ava felt cold sweat beneath her hairline. Her heart thudded painfully. "Please, please don't let anything happen to them." Silas bent over her, brushing tears from her cheeks with trembling fingers. "Ava, listen to me. You're not alone. They're going to take care of you. I'm right here." Dr. O'Malley entered then, calm but clearly alarmed, her quick strides filling the room with urgency. "Talk to me," she said as she reached the monitor. "How long has the deceleration been happening?" 30 seconds, a nurse replied. The doctor frowned. "We need to act now. Ava, your stress levels are spiking. Your blood pressure is elevated. Baby B is responding to that stress." Ava felt a sob claw its way up her throat. "I can't control it. I'm trying so hard." Silas cupped her face, his voice taut. "Look at me. Ava, look at me." Her eyes met his, blue and desperate, steady despite his own fear. "Breathe with me," he whispered. "In and out. You can do this." She followed his rhythm, her breath shaky but slowing. But then, the monitor dipped again, harder, longer. Dr. O'Malley made a split-second decision. Prep for corticosteroids and get neonatal staff on standby. If this continues, we may need to do an emergency C-section. Ava's world froze. "Not yet. Not now. Please, they're too early," she cried. "We're not rushing," the doctor assured her. "But we need to be ready." Silas tightened his grip on her hand. "Ava, I know you're scared. But I swear to you, I won't let anything happen without fighting with everything I have." A nurse adjusted the monitor again. "Baby B's oxygen flow is dipping. This could be due to maternal stress, or it could be the condition worsening." A soft knock came at the door. "Mia, I heard the alarms," she said quietly. "Do you need me to leave?" Ava shook her head violently. "Stay, please." Mia approached, her face etched with concern. "Ava, listen to me." She lowered her voice. "This is not your fault. Do you hear me? Not now, not ever." But Ava's mind spiraled. Declan's voice rang in her skull. "Unfit, unstable, dangerous." She pressed both hands to her face. "He's doing this. He's killing them. He's killing my baby." Silas's expression changed, like a breaking point inside him snapped cleanly. "No," he said sharply. "Declan didn't cause this. He caused the stress. But the medical condition? That's nature. And you fought it every day. You kept them alive." Ava shook her head weakly. "But I'm not strong enough. I don't think I am." Silas leaned closer, forehead touching hers. "You are the strongest person I've ever known. You survived what no one else could. These babies, they know your strength. They've held on this long because of you." Her breathing slowed, just enough for Baby B's monitor to flicker upward. Not stable, but not fading. The room exhaled collectively. Dr. O'Malley adjusted her glasses, relief softening her posture. "Good, that's good. But Ava, you need rest, total rest, and calm. Anything that stabilizes your emotional state helps the babies." Ava nodded shakily, but the moment felt fragile, like glass twisting under pressure. Silas kissed her forehead softly. "I'm not leaving your side. Not for a second." But then Danvers reappeared at the door, urgency crackling around him. "Mr. Hawthorne," he whispered, "Declan isn't in the lobby anymore." Silas's blood ran cold. "Where is he?" Danvers swallowed. "We're not sure. He slipped past one of the reporters. He's somewhere on this floor." Ava's heart dropped. She grabbed Silas's arm, voice breaking. "He's coming for me." Silas turned toward the hallway, no fear in his eyes now. Only fury. And the promise of war. Because if Declan Ward dared step 1 foot closer, it would become the last mistake he ever made. The moment Danvers said the words, "He's somewhere on this floor," every instinct in Ava's body screamed danger. Her pulse pounded so hard the fetal monitors flickered in response, and she forced herself to breathe, terrified of triggering another drop in Baby B's heartbeat. Silas moved instantly, placing himself between Ava and the door, as if he expected Declan to burst in at any second. "Danvers, lock down the entire wing," he ordered. "No one enters without clearance from me or Dr. O'Malley." Danvers nodded sharply and disappeared into the hallway, his voice already echoing orders to hospital security. Mia stepped closer to Ava, laying a grounding hand on her arm. "Remember what the doctor said. Your safety and calm matter most. Let us handle him." Ava nodded, though her whole body trembled. "He won't stop," she whispered. "Not until he gets what he wants." Silas turned back to her, eyes burning with fierce protectiveness. Then he's about to learn that he picked the wrong people to terrorize. Before Ava could respond, a commotion erupted outside. The clash of hurried footsteps, raised voices, the sharp bark of security commands. Silas stiffened, listening intently. A nurse rushed in, pale and breathless. "He's on the east end of the ward, trying to open patient doors." Ava's stomach flipped. "He's trying to get into rooms?" The nurse nodded shakily. "He's shouting your name and threatening staff." Silas's hands clenched into fists. "I'm going out there." Ava grabbed his wrist. "No, Silas, please. If he provokes you, he'll twist it. He'll say you attacked him, that you're dangerous." Her voice broke. "He wants you angry. He needs you angry." Silas softened, leaning down to kiss her forehead. "I won't give him what he wants. I'll give him what he deserves." Mia stepped forward. "Wait, let me go first." Both Ava and Silas stared at her. Mia explained, "Declan's tactic is psychological escalation. He's expecting a confrontation with someone he can bait, Silas especially. But he doesn't expect someone like me. Someone calm. Someone he can't intimidate." Ava shook her head. "He's dangerous." Mia held up a small badge, her official evaluator credentials. "And I'm not afraid of men who hide behind paperwork and rage." She slipped out of the room before either of them could protest. Silas hovered near the door, listening, ready to burst out at the slightest sign of danger. Ava clutched his sleeve, praying silently. Moments later, Mia's voice drifted down the hall, calm, steady, authoritative. "Mr. Ward, this behavior is inappropriate. You need to stop." Declan's reply was like venom. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm the court-appointed evaluator," she said, "and your actions tonight are being documented." A long, tense silence. Then, Declan's voice erupted, unhinged. "Don't lecture me. She's my wife. She's sick. She's dangerous. She's—" "No," Mia cut in sharply. "What I see is a man spiraling. A man who is endangering staff, patients, and the woman he claims to love. This ends now." Silas stepped into the hall just far enough to see what was happening, but stayed where Ava begged him to stay. Close, but not involved. Declan stood at the far end of the corridor, hair wild, tie hanging crookedly, eyes bloodshot with fury. Security surrounded him, waiting for a cue to move in. He spotted Silas, and snapped. "You think you can take everything from me? My wife? My future? My life?" He jabbed a finger at Ava's door. "She belongs with me, not with you." Silas didn't flinch. "Ava doesn't belong to anyone." Declan lunged forward. Security tackled him instantly. He thrashed, screaming, "Ava! Ava! He's lying to you! I can fix everything! Just come with me!" Ava sobbed, burying her face in her hands. Silas rushed back to her side, holding her tightly. "He won't touch you. He won't even breathe near you again." Down the hall, security finally restrained Declan, slamming handcuffs around his wrists as he continued kicking and spitting like a feral animal. Mia returned, breathless. "He's being escorted out of the hospital and taken into custody for trespassing, harassment, and attempted interference with medical care." Ava let out a sound, a broken, relieved, exhausted sound. "It's over?" Mia exchanged a look with Silas. "Not yet," she said softly, "but this is the beginning of the end." Ava looked at Silas, eyes full of fear and hope mingled together. "Then I'll hold on," she whispered, hand over her stomach. "For them." Silas kissed her knuckles gently. "And I'll destroy anyone who tries to take them from you." Outside, as Declan was dragged away screaming her name, Ava realized something profoundly simple. The next move wasn't his, it was hers. The hospital felt quieter after Declan was dragged out, but the silence wasn't peace. It was the heavy, trembling quiet that follows an earthquake, when everyone waits to see if another wave will hit. Ava lay back against her pillows, utterly drained, her hand resting protectively over the 3 small lives inside her. The monitor beside her steadied again, Baby B's heartbeat still fragile, but holding. Silas sat in the chair beside her bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tightly. He wasn't looking at her, he was staring at the floor, shoulders tense, as if wrestling with something too dark to say aloud. Ava touched his hand softly. "Silas, talk to me." He lifted his head, His eyes were red, not from tears, but from sleepless fury. "Ava, you could have died tonight. Our babies, they could have." He broke off, jaw clenching. "I should have stopped him sooner. I should have seen this coming." Ava shook her head. "You protected me. You saved us." Before Silas could respond, Deborah strode into the room, tablet in hand, her heels clicking like punctuation marks against the floor. Mia followed close behind. "We need to update you both," Deborah said, her voice unusually sharp. "This is bigger than we thought." Silas straightened. "What now?" Deborah tapped the screen. "Declan didn't just breach your medical data or stalk Ava. He bribed a clerk in the courthouse to fast-track his petition." Ava felt a chill crawl across her skin. "Bribed? How much?" "Enough," Deborah answered grimly. "But money isn't the issue. The issue is leverage." The clerk was drowning in debt. Declan preyed on desperation. Mia folded her arms. "This confirms everything we suspected: coercion, fraud, malicious intent. The ethics board is already moving, and now the district attorney wants statements." Silas leaned forward. "How strong is our case?" Deborah smiled, a slow, razor-sharp smile. "Ironclad. Declan left fingerprints on every crime he committed. He was sloppy because he was desperate. And men who spiral like he did always make the same fatal mistake." She raised a brow. "They underestimate the woman they're obsessed with." Ava swallowed hard. "What happens now?" Deborah sat on the edge of the bed. "The DA is preparing multiple charges: attempted medical fraud, harassment and stalking, extortion of a medical aid, attempted interference in fetal medical care, trespassing in a secured hospital wing, possibly more as evidence is processed." Ava covered her mouth, overwhelmed. "He won't get out of this, will he?" "No." Deborah's tone was final. "Not this time." Mia added, "And your statement at the press conference earlier? It actually helped. It proved you're coherent, strong, and credible. The court will take that into account." Ava felt a strange, trembling warmth flood her chest. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was being believed. Silas reached for her hand. "I told you." He was done the moment he stepped foot in this hospital. But just then, Danvers reappeared at the door. His expression was different this time. Relieved, almost triumphant. "Mr. Hawthorne," he said, "you'll want to see this." He held up his phone. On the screen was a live stream from the lobby. Reporters crowded near the exit as police escorted Declan out in handcuffs, his hair disheveled, his face twisted in manic fury. Flashing cameras lit the scene like lightning. A reporter shouted, "Mr. Ward, any comment on your arrest?" Declan screamed, "She did this to me. She's mine. That woman ruined me." Police shoved him into the back of the squad car as crowd noises echoed through the speakers. Ava's hand flew to her chest. She hadn't expected to feel this way. Shaken, emotional, but also lighter, as if the weight he'd pressed on her for years had finally cracked. Silas exhaled slowly, tension easing from his shoulders. "It's over." But Mia raised a hand gently. "Tonight was a victory, but the real battle is making sure he stays away forever." Ava nodded. "And I'll do whatever it takes." Deborah softened her voice. "You already did the hardest part, Ava. You spoke. You fought. And now, the law will handle the rest." Ava turned to Silas, tears filling her eyes, not from fear this time, but from something else. Something new. "Silas, we're safe, right?" He took her face in his hands, pressed his forehead to hers, and whispered, "As long as I breathe, you and our children will always be safe." For the first time in years, Ava believed it. Declan was falling, and she was finally rising. The next 72 hours inside St. Aurora Hospital felt like an eternity, wrapped inside a heartbeat. Declan's arrest created a protective shield around Ava's world. No more shouting in hallways, no more threats, no more shadows waiting outside her door. But even with him gone, her nerves remained frayed, stretched thin from months of terror and the fragile life fluttering inside her. Baby B's heartbeat continued to waver, better than before, but still delicate. Nurses checked on her every hour. Dr. O'Malley adjusted her medication, ordered new scans, and spent long stretches sitting by Ava's side, explaining every chart with patience. Through it all, Silas never left. He slept in the reclining chair beside her bed, sometimes with his head resting by her hip, sometimes with his hand wrapped around hers, as if afraid she'd disappear. When she woke shaking from a nightmare, he was there. When she cried silently into her pillow, he was there. When the babies kicked, he grinned like a man witnessing a miracle. On the third morning, soft winter sunlight spilled into the room, warming Ava's face. She blinked awake to find Silas studying her, his elbows on the mattress, his expression soft and aching. "Morning," he whispered. Her throat tightened. "You should rest. You haven't slept more than an hour." "I rest when you rest," he murmured. She reached up and brushed her fingers along his jaw, a simple gesture that carried 1,000 unspoken words. He leaned into her touch. A gentle knock interrupted them. Deborah entered with a small smile, followed by Mia. "We have news," Deborah said. Ava braced herself. "Good or bad?" "Good," Mia answered. "Declan's petition has been thrown out. Permanently, and the judge issued a protective order so strict he won't even be allowed within 5 city blocks of this hospital or any future residents." Ava let out a trembling exhale. "Thank God," Deborah added. "The DA is moving forward with charges. With the evidence we have, he won't see the outside of a courtroom for a long time." Silas's hand tightened around Ava's. "It's over. Really over." Ava closed her eyes as silent tears spilled down her cheeks. Tears not of fear this time, but release, relief, healing. Mia sat beside her. "Ava, I want you to hear something important. You're safe, you're strong, and you're not alone anymore." Ava nodded, her whole body trembling. "Thank you, all of you." When they left, the room settled into a quiet warmth. Ava turned toward Silas, wiping tears from her cheeks. "Silas, everything that happened, it feels too big, too much, and I don't know what comes next." Silas shifted closer, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. "I do." She frowned gently. "What do you mean?" He reached into the drawer beside him and pulled out a small velvet box, navy blue, worn at the edges as if he'd carried it for weeks. Ava covered her mouth. "Silas, don't panic," he whispered with a smile. "Just listen." He opened the box to reveal a ring, not large, not flashy, but stunning in its simplicity. A thin platinum band with a single diamond held in a classic setting, timeless, elegant, perfect. "I'm not asking you to rush," he said softly. "I'm not asking because of the babies or the chaos or anything else." His voice thickened. "I'm asking because somewhere along the way, I realized I don't want a future where you're not beside me." Ava's breath caught. "You changed me," he whispered. "You brought light back into my life. And I want to spend whatever years I have showing you what real safety, real love, real peace feels like." A sob escaped her lips. Silas took her hand, his thumb trembling over her knuckles. "Ava Reynolds, will you marry me?" Ava looked into his eyes, steady, loyal, full of a love she once believed she'd never deserve. She nodded, tears streaming. "Yes, yes, Silas, I will." He kissed her, gentle, careful, full of promise. The monitors hummed softly beside them, 3 heartbeats flickering on the screen like tiny stars. And for the first time in her life, Ava felt not fear, but a future, a real one. And as Silas held her close, Ava realized this was her true victory, not revenge, not survival, but finally having a home where love, not fear, lived. So, our story finally comes to an end. And if you're still here with me right now, my friend, it means something in this journey touched your heart in a way only real life can. Maybe it reminded you of your own pain, your own battles, or the moments you thought you wouldn't survive. But you did, and you're still standing. Ava's story teaches us something powerful. Healing doesn't happen in a straight line. And sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the ones who taught us how strong we truly are. Like Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The obstacle is the way." The very thing meant to break you can become the thing that raises you. You deserve safety. You deserve peace. You deserve a life built on love, not fear. And if today's story stirred something inside you, if it made you feel seen, understood, or just a little less alone, then don't keep it to yourself. Hit the like button so this message reaches someone who needs it. Share this video with a friend who might be healing too. And subscribe, because I promise you, more stories, more strength, and more hope are coming. Thank you for being here. You are not alone.
Unaware the wife he kicked her out was the secret billionaire who owned the company he worked for. He divorced her to marry his mistress. What she did when she discovered crushed them. Marcus Thornton didn't know that the woman whose belongings he was throwing onto the rain-soaked driveway was actually Vivian Ashford Thornton, the secret billionaire owner of Ashford Global Industries, the very company where he'd just been promoted to vice president. As he stood there with his mistress Sienna wrapped around his arm, watching his wife of 12 years pick up her scattered clothes from puddles, he had no idea that the struggling artist He just divorced, owned the $8.7 billion empire that signed his paycheck. In 72 hours, Vivian would walk into his corner office as the company's CEO. And what she did next wouldn't just end his career, it would obliterate everything he and Sienna had built on the ruins of their marriage. This is the story of how the man who thought he was trading up for a trophy wife discovered he'd thrown away the queen who controlled the entire board. 3 days before the reveal, the divorce papers had been finalized exactly 24 hours ago. Marcus Thornton stood in the master bedroom of what was once their shared home, watching with barely concealed satisfaction as his ex-wife Vivian loaded the last of her paintings into cardboard boxes. She looked smaller somehow, diminished in her paint-stained jeans and oversized sweater, nothing like the polished woman who now waited downstairs. "You should really take the Johnsons' portrait commission," Marcus said, his voice dripping with false concern. "I know money's going to be tight for you now. Your little art studio barely breaks even." Vivian's hands stilled on the canvas she was wrapping. For a moment, Marcus thought he saw something flash in her hazel eyes, something sharp and calculating that reminded him uncomfortably of the boardroom predators at Ashford Global. But then she simply smiled, that same gentle, slightly sad smile she'd worn throughout the entire divorce process. "I'll manage," she said softly. "I always do." Marcus snorted. "Right. Well, the house is mine now, fair and square. Judge agreed you contributed nothing financially to this marriage. 12 years of playing with paints while I built my career." He gestured around the bedroom. "This promotion to VP at Ashford Global? That's real work, Vivian. That's what success looks like." "I'm sure you've earned it," Vivian replied, her voice maddeningly calm. She taped up the final box and straightened, meeting his eyes directly for the first time in weeks. "Congratulations on your promotion, Marcus, and your engagement to Sienna. I hope you'll both be very happy." The words should have sounded bitter, but they didn't. They sounded genuine, which somehow made Marcus angrier. He'd expected tears, recriminations, begging. Instead, Vivian had signed the papers without a fight, agreed to the asset division that left her with almost nothing, and now stood before him with an expression of something that looked almost like pity. "Save your false well wishes," Marcus snapped. "We both know you're just bitter that I'm marrying someone younger, more beautiful, more successful. Sienna is everything you never were." "Sienna is lovely," Vivian agreed, picking up one of her boxes. "Does she know she's engaged yet? Or are you still planning to surprise her at the company gala next week?" Marcus stiffened. He hadn't told Vivian about his plan to propose to Sienna at Ashford Global's annual charity gala, the biggest social event of the year, where all the executives and board members gathered. "How did you—" "The invitation was in the mail," Vivian said simply. "I saw the venue. Very romantic, Marcus. Very public. I'm sure it will be memorable." She moved toward the door, then paused and looked back at him. "For what it's worth, I really do hope you find what you're looking for. Goodbye, Marcus." As she descended the stairs, Marcus heard Sienna's sharp voice echo up from the foyer. "Is she finally gone? God, I can't believe you were married to that frumpy little nobody for 12 years. What were you thinking?" Marcus didn't hear Vivian's response, but he heard the front door close quietly. Through the bedroom window, he watched her load boxes into an old sedan. Not even a decent car, he noted with satisfaction, and drive away without looking back. Good riddance. 2 days before the reveal, Sienna Drake lounged in Marcus's new corner office at Ashford Global Industries, her designer heels propped up on his mahogany desk. At 28, she was everything Marcus had convinced himself Vivian wasn't: ambitious, glamorous, hungry for success. As the company's senior marketing director, she understood the game they were playing. "I still can't believe you actually did it," she purred, scrolling through her phone. "Divorced the deadweight and cleared the path for us. How much did she take you for in the settlement?" Marcus settled into his leather chair with a smug smile. "That's the beautiful part. Almost nothing. The prenup was ironclad. She signed it without even reading it 12 years ago, and since her little art studio never made real money, she had no claim to my salary or assets. She walked away with maybe 200,000 tops." "Pocket change," Sienna laughed. God, imagine being that pathetic. No career, no money, no prospects. What's she going to do now? Move back in with her parents? She doesn't have parents, Marcus said dismissively. They died years ago. But that's not our problem anymore. Have you picked out your dress for the gala? Sienna's eyes lit up. Red Valentino. It cost more than your ex-wife probably made in a year. She swung her legs down and moved to sit on Marcus's lap. And when you propose in front of everyone, all the board members, the CEO, the entire executive team, everyone will see that Marcus Thornton is a winner. With a winner's wife. Marcus pulled her closer, already imagining the moment. The Ashford Global Charity Gala was legendary, held in the grand ballroom of the Meridian Hotel, attended by the company's mysterious CEO, whom nobody below senior VP level ever actually met. The CEO was notoriously private, running the empire through intermediaries and video conferences, but they always attended the gala in person. Proposing to Sienna there, in front of the company's most powerful players, would cement Marcus's position in the executive hierarchy. It would show everyone that he was serious, stable, committed, exactly the kind of man who deserved his rapid rise through the ranks. Have you ever actually met the CEO? Sienna asked, trailing her fingers along his collar. I've worked here for 3 years, and I've never even seen them. It's always representatives and lawyers. Once briefly during my final interview, Marcus lied smoothly. In truth, he'd interviewed with the chief operating officer, but he liked the idea that he was important enough to meet the CEO. Very businesslike, didn't make much of an impression. His desk phone buzzed. Marcus's assistant's voice crackled through. Mr. Thornton, you have a meeting with the executive transition team in conference room A in 10 minutes. They said it's mandatory for all VPs and above. Transition team? Marcus frowned. What's that about? I don't know, sir. The memo just came down from the CEO's office an hour ago. Marcus exchanged a glance with Sienna. Company-wide meetings from the CEO's office were rare. Did they say what the meeting is about? No, sir. Just that attendance is mandatory. Conference Room A, Ashford Global Industries headquarters. 20 minutes later, Marcus sat in the sleek conference room alongside the other 5 vice presidents. They all looked as confused as he felt. At the head of the table sat 3 people Marcus didn't recognize. 2 lawyers in expensive suits, and a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and an expression that suggested she ate junior executives for breakfast. Thank you all for coming on short notice, the woman began. My name is Patricia Holloway, Chief Operating Officer of Ashford Global Industries. I'll be brief. After 15 years of maintaining a private profile, our CEO has decided to take a more active, hands-on role in company operations. Starting next week following the charity gala, they will be assuming direct oversight of all executive divisions. A murmur rippled through the room. Marcus felt a flutter of nervousness. Direct oversight meant scrutiny. It meant their decisions would be watched more closely. What prompted this change? Asked Richard Chen, the VP of Finance, voicing what they were all thinking. Patricia's smile was thin. That's the CEO's prerogative. What you need to know is this. There will be a complete review of all executive decisions made in the past 18 months. Personnel files, project approvals, and expense accounts, everything. The CEO wants to ensure the company is operating at peak efficiency and ethical standards. Marcus felt sweat prickle at the back of his neck. 18 months ago, he'd made some aggressive decisions about vendor contracts. Nothing illegal exactly, but he'd steered several lucrative deals toward companies where Sienna had connections, ensuring they both benefited from the kickbacks. It was standard practice in his mind, networking, relationship building, but under direct scrutiny from the CEO. I'm sure we all welcome increased transparency, Marcus said smoothly, forcing confidence into his voice. Ashford Global's success speaks for itself. Indeed it does, Patricia replied, and something in her tone made Marcus's stomach clench. The company's current valuation is $8.7 billion with operations in 42 countries. The CEO is very protective of that legacy and very uninvested in ensuring nothing tarnishes it. She stood, the lawyers flanking her like guards. You'll all receive detailed briefings before the gala. I suggest you review your divisional reports carefully. The CEO has a remarkable eye for detail and a very long memory. Good afternoon, gentlemen. As they filed out, Marcus pulled Richard aside. Have you ever actually met the CEO? Do you know anything about them? Richard shrugged. Only rumors. Very private, never gives interviews, inherited the company from family. Word is they're ruthless when crossed, but fair if you're honest. Why? Just curious. Marcus forced a casual tone. New job, want to make a good impression. But as he walked back to his office, past the gleaming chrome and glass that spoke of Ashford Global's billions, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The ground beneath his feet felt suddenly less solid. He found Sienna in his office, touching up her lipstick. So, what was the big meeting? CEOs coming out of hiding, taking a more hands-on approach. Marcus poured himself a scotch from his desk bar, even though it was only 2 p.m. They're reviewing everything from the past 18 months. Sienna's perfectly shaped eyebrows rose. Everything? Including the Meridian contract you pushed through last year, the one where I happened to introduce you to the CEO's cousin? That was legitimate business networking, Marcus said sharply. Nothing wrong with building relationships, but they both knew that the $50,000 consulting fee that Sienna had received from Meridian Industries had come directly from the markup Marcus had approved on their contract with Ashford Global. It was a gray area at best. I'm sure it's fine, Sienna said, but her voice had lost some of its confidence. We're both smart. We've been careful. And after the gala, after you propose, you'll be even more established. They're not going to touch a VP who's about to become a family man. Marcus nodded, trying to believe it. The gala was in 5 days. He just needed to hold steady until then. The night before the gala, Vivian. Ashford sat in her newly furnished penthouse apartment, reviewing reports on her tablet, while Mozart played softly in the background. The apartment was in the Pinnacle Tower, the most expensive residential building in the city, but she'd chosen a modest 3-bedroom unit rather than the sprawling penthouse suite. Old habits died hard. Everything is in place for tomorrow, Patricia Holloway said, settling into the chair across from her. The executive team has been briefed. Well, most of them. Your ex-husband and his new fiancée remain blissfully unaware. Vivian didn't look up from the financial reports. And the investigation into the Meridian contract? Complete. Marcus approved a 37% markup on services that Meridian Industries then kicked back through Sienna Drake's consulting business. He essentially stole $280,000 from the company while enriching himself and his mistress. We have emails, bank transfers, everything. Not the only irregularity? No. We found 6 similar schemes over the past 14 months. Total theft approaches $1.2 million. He's been very creative. Patricia paused. You know, when you first asked me to dig into his activities, I thought you might be looking for revenge. But this is actual fraud. Vivian finally looked up, her hazel eyes cool and assessing. I wasn't looking for revenge, Patricia. I was looking for the truth. Marcus always claimed his rapid success at Ashford Global was due to his brilliance and work ethic. I wanted to know if that was true, or if he'd been cutting corners. He's been cutting corners and lining his pockets, Patricia confirmed. The question is, what do you want to do about it? Vivian set down her tablet and moved to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the city. Somewhere out there, Marcus was probably celebrating with Sienna, convinced he'd traded up from his struggling artist wife to a power couple future. He had no idea that Vivian Ashford Thornton was actually Vivian Ashford, sole heir to the Ashford Global fortune. Her grandfather, Jonathan Ashford, had founded the company 50 years ago. When he died 8 years ago, control had passed to her grandmother, Elizabeth, who'd run the empire from the shadows while publicly maintaining that the company was managed by a board of directors. When Elizabeth died 2 years ago, everything had come to Vivian, the $8.7 billion company, the real estate portfolio, the investment funds, the art collection worth hundreds of millions, because Vivian's little paintings weren't amateur efforts. She was actually a successful artist who sold works under a pseudonym for 6 figures apiece. That was how she'd met Marcus 12 years ago, at a gallery opening where he'd been trying to impress clients and she'd been displaying her work. He'd never known who she really was. She'd been so tired of men who wanted her money, her name, her connections. Marcus had seemed different, middle class, ambitious but genuine, someone who wanted her for herself. So she'd hidden her wealth behind lawyers and trusts. She'd posed as a struggling artist. She'd lived modestly in Marcus's house, contributed to bills with money from her small commissions, and let him believe he was the successful one. And for 12 years, she'd loved him genuinely, waiting for the right moment to reveal the truth, waiting until he was secure enough in himself and their marriage to handle the revelation. But then came Sienna Drake, the affair that Marcus thought he'd hidden so well, the betrayal that had gutted Vivian more than any financial loss ever could. I gave him every chance, Vivian said quietly. Even during the divorce, I offered him a fair settlement. I suggested marriage counseling. I tried to save what we had, and he kicked me out of his house, my grandfather's house that I bought and put in his name, like I was trash. So tomorrow, Patricia prompted, tomorrow Marcus Thornton is going to propose to his mistress in front of 400 people, including all of Ashford Global's executives and board members. And I'm going to introduce myself as the CEO he's never met. Vivian's reflection in the window looked nothing like the soft, gentle woman Marcus had divorced. And then I'm going to give him a choice. What kind of choice? Vivian turned, and her smile was sharp as broken glass. The kind that reveals exactly who people really are. The charity gala. The Meridian Hotel's grand ballroom glittered like a jewel box. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow prisms across marble floors. Women in designer gowns mingled with men in bespoke tuxedos, champagne flutes in hand, while a string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner. Marcus Thornton felt like he was floating. This was his moment. In his pocket, the engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond that had cost him $20,000, waited for the perfect moment. Sienna stood beside him in her red Valentino gown, looking like a goddess, drawing admiring stares from every man in the room. "Have you seen the CEO yet?" Sienna whispered. "I've been watching the entrance. Nobody's arrived who looks like they own a billion-dollar company." Marcus scanned the crowd. He recognized most of the faces, VPs, directors, senior managers. The board members held court near the bar, distinguished older men and women who rarely spoke to anyone below executive level, but no obvious CEO candidate. "Fashionably late, probably," Marcus said. "Builds mystique." "Ladies and gentlemen," Patricia Holloway's voice rang out as she took the small stage at the front of the ballroom. "Thank you all for attending Ashford Global's annual charity gala. Before we begin the formal program, I have a very special announcement." The room quieted. Marcus felt a flutter of anticipation. This wasn't the scheduled time for his proposal, but maybe. As many of you know, Ashford Global has been led for the past 15 years by a CEO who preferred to maintain their privacy and run the company through trusted representatives. Tonight, that changes. It is my honor to introduce, for the first time in a public company capacity, the woman who has guided Ashford Global to its current $8.7 billion valuation. The granddaughter of our founder, the sole owner and CEO of Ashford Global Industries, Ms. Vivian Ashford. The spotlight swung to the ballroom's main entrance, and Vivian walked in, but not the Vivian that Marcus knew. This woman wore a black evening gown that probably cost more than his car, with diamonds at her throat and ears that caught the light like captured stars. Her hair, usually pulled back in a messy bun, was styled in an elegant updo. She moved with the confidence of someone who owned not just the company, but the building, the city block, probably half the city. She looked like money, old money, serious money. She looked like power. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. No, this wasn't possible. This was some mistake. Some woman who happened to look like his ex-wife. Some cosmic joke. But then Vivian's eyes found his across the ballroom, and he knew. The recognition in her gaze was unmistakable. Sienna's hand clutched his arm. "Marcus," she hissed. "Marcus, that's your ex-wife. What the hell is going on?" I can't." Marcus couldn't form words. His brain couldn't process what he was seeing. Vivian took the stage beside Patricia, And when she spoke, her voice carried the authority of someone who'd spent her life in boardrooms. Thank you all for being here tonight. I know many of you are surprised to see me. For those who don't know me personally, let me be clear. I am Vivian Ashford, daughter of Richard Ashford, granddaughter of Jonathan Ashford, our company's founder. I inherited controlling interest in Ashford Global 2 years ago and have been managing operations through our excellent executive team. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. But recent events have prompted me to take a more direct role. I believe in transparency, accountability, and ethical business practices, which is why I've spent the past 3 months conducting a comprehensive audit of all executive decisions and financial transactions. Marcus felt his knees go weak. Sienna's nails dug into his arm. Most of our executives have performed admirably, Vivian continued, but unfortunately our investigation uncovered significant irregularities, specifically a pattern of fraud involving inflated vendor contracts and kickback schemes that siphoned approximately $1.2 million from company funds over 14 months. A murmur rippled through the crowd. The board members near the bar suddenly looked very attentive. Mr. Marcus Thornton, Vivian said, and the spotlight swung to pin him like a bug. Vice President of Operations, could you please join me on stage? Marcus felt 400 pairs of eyes turn toward him. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Marcus. Vivian's voice was softer now, but somehow more terrible. Please, we need to have a conversation. Somehow his legs carried him forward, through the parting crowd, up the 3 stairs to the stage, under the spotlight that made him feel like he was burning. Up close, Vivian looked different. Not just the clothes and the styling, but something fundamental in her bearing. This was the woman who'd signed his paychecks for 5 years. The woman who'd watched him climb the corporate ladder, divorce her, and celebrate like he'd won the lottery. Hello, Marcus, she said quietly, so only he could hear. Surprised. Vivian, Yes, I'm CEO of the company where you work, where you've worked for the past 5 years, ever since I arranged for your application to be fast-tracked. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Did you really think your rapid promotions were all merit-based? That you were just so brilliant that you rose from a mid-level manager to VP in record time? You helped me? Marcus felt reality shifting beneath his feet. I loved you, Vivian said simply. I wanted you to succeed. I wanted you to feel proud of yourself before I told you the truth about who I am. But you were never satisfied, were you? Each promotion just made you hungrier, more arrogant, more willing to cut corners. She gestured to Patricia, who handed her a folder. Vivian opened it, showing Marcus pages of financial records, emails, bank transfers. The Meridian contract, the Westbrook deal, Carrington Industries, South Shore Logistics. 6 fraudulent schemes, Marcus. You stole from my company while sleeping beside me every night. And then, when you decided to trade me in for a younger model, you threw me out like garbage and took everything I'd given you. I didn't know, Marcus whispered. I didn't know it was your company. I didn't know. Would it have mattered? Vivian's voice was sharp. If you'd known I owned Ashford Global, would you have treated me better, loved me more? Or would you have just been better at hiding your theft and your affair? Marcus had no answer. In his peripheral vision, he could see Sienna in the crowd, her face pale, already edging toward the exit. I'm going to give you a choice, Vivian said, her voice carrying to the entire silent ballroom now. You can resign quietly right now, and I won't press criminal charges. You'll repay the $1.2 million over time through wage garnishment if necessary, but you'll avoid jail. You'll never work in this industry again, but you'll be free. Or, Marcus croaked, or you can fight me. Claim you were entrapped, that I manipulated you, that this is revenge for the divorce. You can lawyer up and try to destroy my reputation to save yours. Vivian's eyes were cold now, all warmth extinguished. And I will bury you, Marcus. I will use every resource at my disposal to ensure you face the maximum criminal penalties. I will personally testify about every conversation where you bragged about cutting corners. And I will make certain that everyone in this industry knows exactly what kind of man you are. The ballroom was so quiet Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. What's it going to be? Vivian asked. Marcus looked out at the crowd, at the board members watching with impassive faces, at his fellow VPs, some smirking, others looking away in embarrassment, at Sienna, who'd made it to the exit and was now fleeing through the doors. The woman he'd thought he was trading up for, abandoning him the moment things got difficult. He looked back at Vivian, at the woman he'd spent 12 years with, the woman he'd dismissed as unambitious, unsuccessful, beneath him, the woman who'd actually been supporting him every step of the way, loving him, believing in him, even as he betrayed her. "I'll resign," he whispered. "I'll repay every dollar. I'm sorry." Vivian nodded once, crisp and businesslike. "Patricia will handle the paperwork. Security will escort you out." She paused, and for just a moment, something like sadness flickered across her face. "For what it's worth, Marcus, I really did love you. I would have given you everything. All you had to do was love me back." "I did love you," Marcus said, and realized with crushing certainty that it might even be true. I wanted more. More than $8 billion in someone who genuinely cared about you." Vivian's laugh was hollow. "Then I guess you wanted something that doesn't exist. Goodbye, Marcus." Security guards appeared at his elbows. As they led him through the ballroom, past the staring faces and whispered conversations, Marcus caught sight of his reflection in one of the ornate mirrors. He looked small, diminished, exactly how he'd once described Vivian. The irony wasn't lost on him. Epilogue. 6 months later, Marcus Thornton stood in line at the unemployment office, a far cry from the executive suite at Ashford Global. The fraud investigation had made industry news. No company would touch him now. He was working part-time at a hardware store, every paycheck garnished to repay his debt to Ashford Global. It would take him 20 years to clear the balance. Sienna had dumped him via text the night of the gala. She'd blamed him for ruining her career, even though Vivian hadn't pressed charges against her. Within a month, Sienna had left the city entirely, chasing opportunities elsewhere. The house, the beautiful house that Marcus had thought was his, had been quietly repossessed. Turned out it had always been owned by an Ashford family trust. Marcus was now renting a studio apartment in a neighborhood he once would have sneered at. He'd lost everything: career, reputation, home, fiancé. All of it gone in one night, because he'd been too blind to see what he had, too greedy to appreciate it, too arrogant to value the woman who'd actually loved him. Sometimes, late at night, he Googled Vivian's name. She'd made headlines as the youngest female CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Business magazines praised her leadership. She'd increased Ashford Global's value by another $1 billion in 6 months. There were photos of her at charity events, industry conferences, art gallery openings. In every picture, she looked confident, powerful, happy. She'd moved on completely. Marcus had thought he was trading up when he divorced Vivian for Sienna. He'd thought he was climbing to something better. Instead, he'd thrown away a queen to chase a mirage. And now, standing in line at the unemployment office, filling out forms that asked for his employment history, which now included the word resigned under circumstances he could never explain, Marcus finally understood the magnitude of what he'd lost. Not just the money, though. $8 billion would have been nice. Not just the power, though. Being married to a CEO had its perks. But the one person who'd loved him for himself, who'd seen potential in him, who'd believed in him enough to help him succeed, even while hiding who she really was. He'd kicked her out in the rain, and she'd been the secret billionaire owner of his entire world. The irony was crushing. But not as crushing as the knowledge that he had no one to blame but himself. As for Vivian, she returned to her penthouse that evening after another successful board meeting, poured herself a glass of wine, and looked out at the city lights. She'd built Ashford Global's value by another $1 billion. She'd cleaned house of corrupt executives. She'd established new ethical guidelines and transparency measures. But sometimes, in quiet moments, she still felt the ache of what she'd lost. Not Marcus exactly. She'd stopped loving him the moment he'd thrown her belongings into the rain. But the dream of what they could have been if he'd just been the man she'd believed him to be. Still, she reminded herself, she'd survived. She'd rebuilt. And she'd done it on her own terms, without compromising who she was. That was worth more than any marriage built on lies. Vivian raised her glass to the city, to new beginnings, and to the hard-won knowledge that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well, and she was living very well indeed.